Joining us now on the show, we have House Deputy Majority Leader and Appropriations Committee Vice Chairperson Zia Alonto Adiong. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome back to Morning Matters.
Yeah, good morning, Gretchen. Good morning to your viewers.
Unahin po natin itong ang program appropriations. Can you first tell us about the difference before we go to the changes? No? Yung difference po nitong Budget Amendment Review Subcommittee doon sa small committee, kasi ito po yung bagong grupo na nilikha in lieu. Tama po ba? Ano po yung pagkakaiba po ng dalawa?
Well, tama po. Previously, ito yung sinasabi nilang small committee. Ito po yung sa BARSing Budget Amendment Review. Ito po yung mga reforms na ginawa po. No? Apart from yung membership niya ay nag-expand, no? To include to include members from other parties, kasi we want to make it appear like it's a collective decision from among party leaders and party representation in the House, no? Comprising the majority bloc and even the minority, kasi nandun po yung minority leader. But this is also to show na yung process by which this BARC come out with the recommendation to the plenary is transparent, no? Nila-live stream po natin ito. So basically, there's a major difference between the previous small committee and the BARC. Una-una yung membership, pangalawa the process by which items in the budget, in the NEP, are being discussed openly.
Tapos ito ay magkakaroon na ng report. Hindi tulad nung small committee na hinahanap pa ni Congressman Chanco.
Yes po. Immediately, kasi even during the discussion with the BARC, naka-live stream na po tayo. And every items that we discuss, every department na budget ay pinag-uusapan at yung kitang-kita na po, no, yung sinasabi nilang ATM, no, real time, yung pag-feed o live stream. So yes, the report of the BARC will be directly ang una po yung ginawa natin ay we presented the initial result of the first meeting that we had sa mother committee, which is the Appropriations Committee. Tapos, ito pong this time, when we had the last RC meeting yesterday, that would be directly reported to the plenary as a matter, kasi nasa period of amendments po tayo eh. So, ito po i-report na sa committee, as a plenary po, yung magiging
Okay, so magpe-present po usually doon sa mother committee, and then amendments are done at the BARC, and that will comprise the Appropriations Committee report that will be the subject of plenary debates.
Yes, but ultimately, Gretchen, this would still be a recommendation, no? Because when you talk about having a bill passed, it should be the plenary that would approve. So it's still on the recommendatory status pa niya. So once na mapag-usapan ito sa plenary at pagputuhan, yun na yung magiging final version ng House General Appropriations Bill natin na itatransmit naman sa Senate of the Philippines.
Okay. Now, Akbayan Representative Shell Jokno is one of those part of the BARC, right? The Budget Amendments Subcommittee.
No, it's the minority leader. But he is part of the mother committee, which is the Committee on Appropriations.
So hindi po siya parte ng subcommittee. Oo. Kasi, go ahead.
Yeah, the BARC nga po, the composition of the BARC are representatives from party members, no, from party lead, yung mga political parties in the House and the minority. In this case, ang sa minority po, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, is minority leader, umupo dyan, and some other members po. No? I'm not really sure about the other members, yung other members, ang tawag dito, yung kanilang representation in the BARC. But what I know is that the minority has a representation in the BARC, which is the minority leader.
Well, Congressman Jokno did flag the priority items allocated under the unprogrammed appropriations. Sabi po niya na the budget line includes big-ticket pre-planned projects such as foreign-assisted programs, the AFP Modernization Fund, and health emergency allowances. At malaki pa rin, 250 billion pesos under the National Expenditure Program. So ano po yung mga pagbabago, proposed amendments?
Well, unang-una, tinanggal na po natin sa unprogram yung infra component nito. Before kasi merong tinatawag na SAGIP, no? May infra component yung sa unprogrammed funds. So we took that away. We removed the infra to make sure that in all the services that will be delivered, outsourced out from the unprogrammed funds, are purely for number one, for social services. Na pag may mga kalamidad, meron pong po pwedeng pagkunan ng pondo para to to respond, no, at the level of the distraction. Number two, kasi dalawa pong classification yan yung sa program funds. Number two is yung mga foreign assisted funds po, no, our counterpart, to make sure that the foreign assisted the projects and programs will be delivered judiciously in expedition and on time matapos, no. So kung may mga loans po tayo, of course we also have to make to ensure that there will be a counterpart from our government. So yun po yung classification ng unprogrammed funds. What is actually should be considered, Gretchen, is that yung how to source out these funds and how to implement these funds. I guess this time, medyo meticulous po ang requirement, ang guidelines on how one can actually make use of these funds for the specific purposes that are detailed, under the guidelines, in order to make sure that the unprogrammed funds will not be open to any abuses. So based on the experience that we had, yun po yung unang recommendation na tanggalin yung infra component. Sinasabing social delivery of programs in response to calamities and national securities, no, emergencies. It can only be it can only be used doon po sa mga foreign assisted projects. Alam po natin sa guidelines ng foreign assisted projects is very meticulous and really very talagang rigid po yung naka-detail po at rigid yung doon sa counterpart na binibigay po natin to make sure that programs and projects are implemented well.
Yung AFP Modernization Fund, yun po ba ay tinanggal nyo rin?
Well, that still would be discussed in the plenary again. In terms of the funding for the unprogrammed funds, pag-uusapan pa po yan. Again, it's a recommendation na ibibigay po sa plenary. But I think yung sa modernization, meron pong portion dyan na hindi na siya pag-uusapan, hindi na siya i-recommend, but only those salient features of the modernization in the AFP, which also, based on the recommendation of the Department of Defense, would still be considered. No, I'm not at top of my head, nakalimutan ko lang yung mga items. A portion of the modernization would still remain, and some of them would be, would be subject for approval and for debate and for discussion in the plenary.
Okay, so with that, the 250 billion pesos will now be reduced to what amount?
Sorry, I don't have the exact
specific
figure po,
figures.
No?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I cannot give you the exact figure. But still, yung po yung what we discussed during the PARC are the provisions by which this special provisions by which this 200 plus billion program is spent.
All right. You mentioned social services, and Malacanang has echoed the same, na hindi pwedeng maging zero itong unprogrammed appropriations dahil sa Senado naman ang kanilang proposal ay to entirely scrap the unprogrammed appropriations at lahat na lang magkaroon ng line item program. No? Pero hindi po ba posible yun? Because when you talk about social services and calamities, meron naman po tayong calamity and quick response funds. And we do have, parang meron po tayong mga forecast, ilang bagyong tumatama sa bansa natin, meron tayong mga emergency fund. Hindi po ba possible to put that all down as program appropriations already?
Number one, when you allocate these funds, no, and then assign that to specific budget entries, that would also in a way limiting the flexibility of using these funds. Meaning, kung halimbawa lalagay po natin to sa mga line items, hindi na po magagamit halimbawa to another purpose, no? Because that would be technical malversation of public funds. Now, when it comes to, tama po yung sinabi mo, yung QRF, no? Quick relief funds, it has a specific, duration by which you can actually use QRF. Like, for example, the immediate response would be naturally ang na-LGUs, no? And then that would be for a certain number of hours that would be assisted by the DILG. And then after 48, kung di ako nagkakamali, hours, doon po papasok yan ang DSWD, no? But the DSWD can only do so much kasi lahat po ng line items nila, it's not really to immediately respond to a calamity that is unplanned and unforecast. Tama po, hindi po talaga may mga means tayo to foresee the coming of the typhoon, but we do not actually know what's going to be the impact of the typhoon.
Okay.
And we will be able to know na magkakaroon tayo ng ganung papasok, pero yung distraction that it might cause to the community, hindi natin alam. For a certain number of days and hours or weeks perhaps and months, the DSW can actually source out yung sinasabi nilang stock ng mga pang-relief na pang-ayuda nila. But they cannot actually use the other programs in order to compensate for the needed relief assistance for the victims. So that's where the unprogrammed funds come in. Kasi at least meron siyang purpose, may flexibility siya na gagamitin. Again, Gretchen, it's only a matter of documentation and making sure that unprogrammed funds will not be used outside of what is intended to be used.
Okay, and I want to go to the other point that you raised. Paano nga ba yung proseso para ma-access mo itong unprogrammed appropriations? Kanino mga pirma ang kinakailangan? Because I remember when we talk about unprogrammed appropriations, yung excess funds nitong DOH na transmit papunta sa National Treasury na dapat ililipat nga po dito sa unprogrammed appropriations. Kasi pag sinabi po natin unprogrammed appropriations, ito po ay di ba, kumbaga savings. Meron kang mga dagdag na parang mga barya na yun ang gagamitin mo ngayon panggastos sa iba pang dagdag na proyekto. So, number one, would this be usually accessed by the end of the year? At pangalawa, sino po yung mga pumipirma? At pangatlo, kadalasan kanino po nanggagaling itong mga pondo na ito?
Well, kung di ako nagkakamali po, no, but the way I understand it, the program fund is also mostly composed of the targeted revenues that we'll be getting. No? That's number one. And number two, yung about the sino po yung mag-handle then, well, at the top of my head, I would probably assume that the DBM will be the one to handle these funds. No? Kasi hindi naman po siya readily available. You can actually access this kung meron talagang number one, dun sa dalawang criteria, talagang impact ng mga calamities. Number two is talagang gagamitin yon for our counterparts alone. So there are quite number of offices by which the access of these funds and to utilize these funds have to go through. So I'm not really sure how does the executive branch utilize this? Perhaps the agencies that would be involved in terms of social services and response to calamities, that would be the ALJ and the SWD if you want. And of course, DBM will be the one to handle these funds. And us, for the foreign assisted projects, our counterpart would still be an agency, particularly the DPWH perhaps. No? Kasi sa JICA, alam ko, DPWH, they also enter into MOA. So I guess those are the agencies that are involved in sourcing out these unprogrammed funds. But again, to get back to your question, what I know, and I could be wrong, again, I don't intend to admit that I'm an expert on this, but it's essentially the on-program funds are also sourced out from the potential revenue that we may be collected. That's why hindi mo talaga siya po pwedeng sabihin na these are the specific amount. I mean, it's assigned to a specific budget entries because these are still part of the possible revenue that we will be collecting within the span of 1 year.
At klaro na dapat wala pong priority projects na nandito. Kasi kung
Tama,
mag-exist
tama. That's
lang.
number one po.
O,
That's
pag may
number
pondo
one
lang.
Tama. Tinanggal po natin talaga yung infra doon, yung component niya. Doon kasi previously, yung sinasabi po na programa na SAGIP, yung infrastructure doon po, talagang tinanggal po doon yon. So hindi ho siya magagamit doon sa mga sinasabi nilang mga flood control, mga possible na mga flood control yung insertion na sinasabi po ni previously, no?
Now I ask you kung sino po may pirma rito because of course you want to shield the budget from political influence na kaya siguro nilalagay doon kasi ito kailangan ng nod no ng executive
I agree.
bago ma-release.
Yeah, that's already that's already the role of the executive branch. What we do in the sa House of Representatives is to make sure that there are special provisions, no, that will guide on how to utilize this. And for the specific guidelines, it would be the executive branch that would sila po yung magpo-formulate itong guidelines na ito.
Okay, now let's go to the budget of the Office of the Vice President. What is the temper like in Congress? Is there still antagonism versus this budget? Or has the ground shifted? Because she is requesting for 200 million, no? As said in our report, additional 200 million for the OVP.
Well, number one, Gretchen, what I can tell you is there are a lot of questions that the House would like to ask the OVP, and a direct response, supposedly, hopefully, they were hoping that the response would be elicited from the OVP during the time by which the presence are requested by the House, no? Starting from the pre-budget deliberation up to the time that the House decided on the debate, no? Hindi pa naman na-decidean. So, talaga marami pong mga tanong na hindi pa po nasasagot. So, you would normally understand na because there are questions that are left unanswered, and instead, there's a demand and condition, of course, naturally, you would feel na meron talagang motion, meron talagang move, and may mga efforts, mostly from the minority bloc, to retain the budget for the Vice President, which is under the GAA of 2025, it's about 733 million. So pag-uusapan po yan sa plenary tomorrow during the period of amendments.
And speaking of mga katanungan, may katanungan naman po ang taong bayan sa Kongreso. Tapos na po ba talaga yung Infracom hearings? Hindi po ba pwedeng magpatuloy ito? Dahil marami pa rin hindi nasasagot na tanong. Katulad na lamang ng na-bring up ni Congressman Leviste, yung sa DPWH na pondo, parang hindi pa, kumbaga kung alam naman natin na meron ng patong dito sa budget nila, ay anong gagawin natin dun sa naisiwalat sa mga hearings? Hindi ba natin pwedeng makuha yung pera natin ulit ngayon na hindi pa naman nababayaran? If you take a look at the progress of those projects, yung mga ganong katanungan po, hindi pa po nasasagot. So, don't you think that wrapping it up is a little bit premature given the extent of the problem?
Yes, what's so funny, Gretchen, is that during the time na nagkakaroon ng Infracom, na sinasabi nila walang kumbaga in terms of credibility, walang credibility ang Infracom na mag-handle ng investigations, especially na may mga possible na names, no, ng mga members ang lalabas. So tapos ngayon sinasabi nila why did we wrap up, no? Number one, yung issue po kasi nung Infracom at the onset, sinabi naman po nung mga chairman na pag papasok po yung ICI, yung Independent Commission, they will turn over the investigation. I mean, whatever that we have obtained during the investigation, we will turn over these documents to the ICI to give the ICI and to investigate even those members of the House that would be named by some of the whistleblowers, no? para yung at least yung sinasabi ng mga tao na hindi naman tayo po pwedeng mag-investigate. Even some of our members, no, in the House are questioning the credibility, integrity, and independence of the Infracom to continue on investigating our own ranks. Kaya nga sabi ko nga, if there are questions about, if you have evidence to support your claim that there are House members that have been involved in these anomalous flood control projects, the best way for you to do that in order to insulate the Infracom from ever becoming a platform that would be used by these members to probably muddle up the investigation is to cite them, file an ethics complaint. So that's going to be a separate venue, and mas maganda po yun. But wala pong apart from Toby Chanko, wala naman pong nag-file or nag-submit ng kanilang complaint sa ethics committee, particularly those members that they think are really involved in the flood control mess, no? So, yung sa
Hindi po ba
Infracom
nag-submit naman po laban kay Congressman Zaldico ng ethics complaint si Congressman Chanco?
Yes. Yeah, tama. Sa sinabi ko nga, apart from Toby Chanko, no other members of the House.
Okay, apart from. Okay. Pero ano po if Congress does this investigation not just as guiding the power of the purse, no, but also in aid of legislation, how do we make sure that safeguards are in place given that yun nga po ito po ay dumadaan sa mga ahensya, sa DPWH, sa COA, sa DBM, sa LGU. Paano po natin masisiguro na hindi po mangyayari ulit ito? Ano po ba, meron po bang mga balak na ihain na panukala to be able to improve on the checks and balances here?
Well, number one, we have to improve on the geotagging system by the DPWH. Kailangan lahat po ng mga big ticket projects like yung mga bridges, no, major bridges, mga flood control, are really based on the needed, based really on the assessed and reviewed and inspected areas kung saan dapat ilalagay. I think it's a matter of really rationalizing kung ano yung priority ng DPWH pagdating doon sa mga national funded programs, bridges, national highways, flood control, drainage system, etc. So dapat talagang based doon po 'yon sa kanilang
pero ayun po ay sa DPWH, pero sa kunwari sa COA po ay sila po ay pumapasok lamang to do post audit. Hindi po ba parang pwedeng agahan? Oo.
Actually, that's what we've been trying to push, no? Even during the previous Congress, na magkaroon naman sila ng pre-audit. Kasi doon nagkakaproblema when the damage has been done no? Saka pa sila magsasabi ng ano. So, mas maganda nga may mga periodic assessment ang COA na ginagawa, no? Para po makita nila. Hindi lang sila clerical dapat. Dapat talagang may tao sila na pupunta doon sa mga lugar na yan to assess really. We've been pushing for that, no? Yung pre-audit, at least magkaroon ng pre-audit na system ang COA rather than solely depend on the post-audit. Kasi sa post-audit, nakikita natin ang dami ng mga anomalya hindi lang sa
And what would be needed to get that done? And ito po ba ay pwedeng ma-legislate?
May charter kasi yung COA
so nasa proseso po nila.
Yes, but we are also pushing them to at least do some adjustments because lahat to yung nag-a-adjust I mean, in terms of legislation, we are clearly responding to the current situation on the ground and the needed reform that we have introduced in to the existing policies that we have. But we also need some sort of a sign of good faith from the agencies. No? If they can do it all by their own without necessarily asking Congress. Kasi when you say legislation, kasi medyo tatagal yan. You still have the Senate to act on the same same proposals that we might file or we might introduce in the House. Pagpalagay natin pumasa po sa House of Representatives, if there's no counterpart bill in the Senate, wala rin pong mangyayari dyan. That's why sinasabi po natin, we're also giving a free hand for each agencies to do its own adjustment, no? may administrative power naman po sila to reform their own policies, no? Kung if it's about administrative matter, sana hindi na umabot sa legislation, sana hindi na umabot sa House. Gawin na nila. That's why we've been pushing them to do some pre-audit
Okay.
system, the policy.
All right, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for answering our questions. And I know we do hope for a better budget process coming from the House. Thank you so much for your time today. We have House Deputy Majority Leader and Appropriations Committee Vice Chairperson Zia Alonto Adiong.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, guys.